Hello, good morning, and welcome to the STEAM Cafe. I'm your host, Jillian Rhodes. On most days, I'm a dancer and choreographer, but on Mondays at this very time and address in cyberspace, I am your server at the STEAM Cafe, bringing you a wide variety of menu items of science-infused art to blast you ahead into the week with some beautiful inspiration and fun things to think about how you can blend and mix together science and art. Before I get started, I've just seen that Spartamaya has subscribed for 17 months, so I owe you a happy dance. So thank you. So thank you guys for the bits and the subs. But enough of that. Today, I am super excited for what's on our menu because I have an incredible guest, Ron Miller from Black Hat Studios, who is just, if you look at what he's done and where he's worked in the past decade, it's just incredible where he's been and what he's done. And I'm super excited to talk to him about it. So welcome, Ron. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. And thanks for that nice introduction. I'm flattered and blushing.
You know, the Korean style. No, I was just looking around on your website, and I just, there's just a lot of stuff, that you've done and that you've worked on, and there's the books and there's places that you've worked on. So I guess my first question is, where did it start? How did you get involved in science and art, or both, or one or the other?
Literally, since I was as young as I can possibly remember, I remember rushing home from elementary school to get home in time to watch Mr. Wizard on TV and Space Patrol and Superman and Captain Video. I can't remember an early enough time when I wasn't interested in space and astronomy and science. And I wanted to be a scientist until I realized science required mathematics. And all numbers over 80 look alike to me. So I'm a terrible at math, but I liked art as well. I loved art. And it dawned on me eventually that I could combine the two interests and do science, art.
Right. It's funny. That's exactly what happened to me, because I was going to study astrophysics as well, and then I realized it involved math, and I was just like, oops, maybe I'll do something. Maybe I'll just study dance instead. So what was it though that what was it that kind of made you think, oh, I can actually put these two things together?
I think, well, it was kind of a multiple strings of things. I was really influenced by the work of Chesley Bonestell, who was kind of the grandfather of modern space art. I saw his work when I was a kid. He was the good artist. I'd actually seek his work out in every book and magazine and encyclopedia I could find. And but his work was so perfect, so postcard-like. I never dreamed of doing anything like it. So it wasn't until really after I got out of college that I started to think that maybe I could try doing space paintings, astronomical paintings of moon and Mars and things like that. Well, it was really Chesley Bonestell who got me interested in combining art and astronomy.
Okay. And so what was your what was the first thing you did? Like your first, did you start illustrating books, or was it
No,
something different?
I was working as a commercial illustrator for a commercial art studio. I was doing refrigerator ads and things like that. And I was going home and I was doing some space paintings just to keep them going crazy, just for fun. About that time, this is like in early 1970s. And I saw an ad for a print of a Chesley Bonestell painting. I said, wow, I had no idea if he's even alive or not. So when I ordered the print, I sent a letter saying, if Mr. Bonestell is still alive, please tell him what a fan I am, how much I admire his work, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I heard back. Yes, Mr. Bonestell is still alive. He loved your letter. This was from Bonestell's manager. I got into correspondence with him. I showed him my work, and I heard back that Bonestell liked it, which was really exciting. And that's how I learned about the Air and Space Museum. The manager wrote to me. His name was Bill Essler. So did you know there's going to be a planetarium at the new Air and Space Museum? You should see if they need an artist. Me not knowing any better, think, oh, sure, why not? So I wrote to the Air and Space Museum, and they said, well, we hadn't really thought about having an artist, but it sounds like a good idea. So that's how I wound up at the Air and Space Museum at the planetarium there. And it was really due to, once again, Chesley Bonestell and how much I
Wow.
admired his work. So there's all
Wow.
these little intertwined connections going on.
Yeah. And so I guess while you were there, you were just kind of doing art for the planetarium and the dome and this.
Yeah, this is back in pre-digital planetarium days when they're all projected onto the dome with slide projectors, really. So
Mm.
if you needed to have the audience think they're on Mars and seeing Mars all the way around at 360 degrees, I would do like a dozen little paintings. They'll all be hooked together in a big circle all around the perimeter of the dome, so you'd feel like you're on Mars. So I would doing things like that for the planetarium, and getting to meet astronomers and astronauts at the same time. So the environment was amazing. It was really inspiring. So it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were just telling me on the pre-show when we were talking that that your boss, or, the upper level boss at the planetarium was Mike Collins, who just passed away this past week.
Yeah, that was very sad. Because I liked Mike Collins very much. Even though he was in charge of the entire museum, I could walk into his office pretty much any time with a question or a complaint, and he would take me as seriously as he would take any of the assistant directors or anyone else. He was very approachable and very nice, and I liked him very. He was also an artist. He was an amateur painter, so I felt we had something in common.
Yeah.
But I liked him very much. He was a very nice guy and very approachable, and I was really sorry to hear him that he had
Yeah.
passed away.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess being in that atmosphere where you were surrounded by, astronauts, and you had this whole support system, that probably kind of jump started you going forwards with further work.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
My studio now has nothing but rockets in it, basically surrounded. It's either books, space art, or rockets all the way around this little room. I've
Yeah.
never grown out of any of that, but it was very inspiring.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was actually gonna to go in a different direction. So there was two questions that came into my mind at the same time. So I'll just have to pick one. But one of the things that you sent me was these postage stamps. So it turns out that you've designed postage stamps at a number of different occasions. So how does one even like how does that even happen? Does the postal
Well,
service like reach out to you and say, please give us some stamps? Like
Howard Payne was one of the National Geographic Society, and he was on the committee
mm.
for the stamp committee, whatever it's called. And I knew him, and he came up with the idea of doing a set of postage stamps of the planets,
Okay.
one stamp for each planet and the moon. And so he came up with the idea, so it was kind of an easy in because he was on the committee that chose the stamps.
Right.
So I did some sketches, and I did the paintings, and what's cool. Each planet has a spacecraft associated with it,
Mhm.
except for Pluto. One little stamp says Pluto not yet explored, and it was attached to the New Horizons spacecraft, which went to Pluto.
Nice.
And the stamp's now in the Guinness Book of World Records as having traveled further than any postage stamp in history.
Wow. It was the postage paid on New Horizons.
Well, I hope it was canceled first. Otherwise, that thing's gonna come right back here someday.
Yeah, for sure. With a huge bill on it. Be like,
Postage due.
yeah,
That was fun.
yeah. That's amazing to just think, like how far it's traveled. I mean, what it
Well, it just passed the 50 astronomical unit line. about a
Wow.
couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, amazing. And so, now like these days, how do you mostly spend your time? Are you illustrating, or I know you're working in books a lot. So like, kind of what is the main bulk of your work these days?
Mostly illustrating, providing space art for magazines like Scientific American and Astronomy and several European magazines.
Okay.
And then I really, really like creating my own books because
Mm.
then I can come up with an idea for a book I really want to illustrate. So I'll come up with an idea for a book that I think that would be really nice, a nice visual idea. And I can both write it and illustrate it at the same time. And it gives me sort of a lot of control over it and a lot of fun. Um,
Mm.
and an excuse to do a lot of new pictures.
Of course. Yeah. And so one of the things that we do have to talk about, absolutely, is that you have a new book that's
Yes.
out.
Came out just slightly less than a month ago. Came out April
Oh,
6th. And it's
awesome.
called Natural Satellites, the Book of Moons.
Mm.
And it's for young adults. And it's all about the moons of the solar system. We barely mentioned the planets, just all about the moons, which are really, really interesting places. And they're usually given footnotes in books. Here's the Earth and the moon, or here's Saturn and Titan. Well, this book is about Titan. It's about the moon, about Enceladus, and how interesting these places are and how important they are. Because
Mm.
the search for life in the solar system is now focusing on places like Titan and Enceladus and Europa. So the book talks all about where these moons came from, what they're like, what they'd be like to visit, what makes them unique, um, all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
all the things that
And
interest
and
me, all the things that interest me.
right, right. And so when you said like, that you wrote it for kind of young adults. So
Yes.
why is that particularly like?
Well, most of the nonfiction books I've done have been not for young adults, and
Mm.
it's an age I really like writing for because you don't have to super simplify things because they're already in high school.
Mm.
By the same token, you don't have to get into massive amounts of complex detail like you would for an adult. It's really like writing for an adult who has no pre-knowledge of the subject.
Mm.
And so it's a nice medium between too young and too old. Um, and I really like writing for that age group a lot.
And so as you're writing and doing this, when you're making the actual images, how do you start? Like, what are you using? Is it digital paintings? Is it real? Like, and how much are you taking in like the science and the data that we have as you're making these illustrations?
Well, I like to make all of my paintings scientifically accurate. But at the same time, I think a good space painting also needs to be a good landscape.
Mm.
Has to work as a work of art almost first. Because if it's a bad piece of artwork, then all the good science in it doesn't count, doesn't matter.
Right.
So they have to be good landscapes first, I think, and with something funny in the sky. So I do a lot of research, but over the years, unless it's something brand new, I usually know what I'm doing. Just like what Chelsea Bonestell was once asked, how long it takes him to do a painting. He said
Mm.
it takes about 4 days and 40 years of experience. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Sometimes it takes longer to research a picture than it takes to paint it. If it's some new
Right.
discovery, something new, I'll contact the scientists involved or whoever's doing the work and ask them, what in the world is this? What would it look like? What's it made of? Questions like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I think, there's at least with, the moons in our solar system, there's a fair amount that we know because we've seen it, but there's also still so much that you have to kind of just imagine based on what we already know.
Well, one thing I have to imagine, for example, is what it would look like to stand on one. We've
Right.
flown past these moons
Sure.
and we look down on them, as you pass by, we look down on them from spacecraft. But that's like traveling over a country by an airliner. The seeing, say, the United States from 40,000 feet in an airliner is not quite the same thing as seeing the Grand Canyon, say, on the rim.
Right.
And so what I try to do is take what NASA has discovered with these flybys and orbiter photos and translate what that would mean to somebody standing on the surface looking at the same features.
Mm,
And I think this makes these things more relatable. Because looking
right.
straight down on something, you have no sense of scale. You don't know
Right.
whether it's a rock or a mountain, whether it's a crack or a canyon. So I try to give these things on a human scale. So you look at the painting, you think, oh, that's what the photo was. So
Right.
you understand the photo better by seeing what it would look like, through a painting,
Yeah.
like the one
Yeah.
you're seeing right now.
Right.
Um, it's the canyon on Pluto's moon, Charon, which you only see as a little meandering crevice in the photos. But seen from the surface, it's just really a massive, giant crack in Charon's
Yeah.
surface. So looking at a picture like that helps you understand the photo better. So they
Yeah.
reinforce each other. The photo, it's real because you see a photo of it,
Mm,
and then the painting helps you understand the photo better. So there's kind of a symbiotic relationship.
yeah. And so are these how do you make these? Like what's the medium that you're using primarily?
Sheer talent. Yeah. I up until about 20 years ago, they were all done in traditional media, acrylic
Okay.
paints.
Right.
And I had got a big project. I had a big project where I had to do 10 young adult books, write them and illustrate them over a period of just a few months.
Wow.
After I did the first paint, I realized, oh, I no way in the world I can do this. And a lot of friends of mine had been urging me to paint digitally. I said,
Mm,
okay, I'll try it. And after the first, I showed it around. And the first time I heard somebody say, "Oh, it looks like a Ron Miller painting," I was sold. So since then, almost all of my work that's been done commercially for books and magazines has been done digitally. But over the past, well, since I've been sequestered here because of the pandemic, I've been painting a lot of more traditional space paintings for myself. I've done about 15 or 20 of these now, and just for fun and to see if I can still do it.
right. If
But I've
after all
really,
this time, you know
right.
what to do, right?
Fortunately, I could.
That's
But it's been a
good.
lot. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Interesting. And so what are those, are they space landscapes that you're working
Well,
on or
there's one right here. Uh, I'll hold it up for you. There we go. That's it's
it's
upside
upside
down.
down
There we go.
actually? Oh
It's
wow.
it's Pluto. Here we go. See if it's
Wow.
lined up there a little bit so the layer's not on it. And
Yeah.
here's one of Saturn seen from Moon's
Wow.
Rhea. So been having fun with those.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's you gotta pass the time somehow in quarantine.
What was
Right.
that?
I said you have to pass the time somehow in quarantine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So so this book, remind me what it's called again, the title of it?
Oh, Natural Satellites. It's
Natural Satellite.
the Book of Moons. It's from Lerner Publishing.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so it's basically the main kind of goal is to get young people interested in these
Oh,
moons.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about these places. I really try to convey that same sense of wonder and
Right.
amazement and excitement that I feel to this day. These places are really real. They're amazing, strange, weird little places, these moons. And I like to get that feeling across. that to the people, that same sense of wonder.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know if you still do, but your website said that you were doing a lot of science fiction and fantasy illustrations as well. Do sometimes your, space landscapes sort of find their way into the science fiction
Oh, definitely.
illustrations as well?
Oh, definitely. Well, there's a very blurry line between the two anyway.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So they plus back doing some of these science fiction or fantasy, it makes a nice change of pace too, since I don't have to worry quite so much about whether every detail is exactly scientifically accurate. I can have a lot more fun. And
Yeah.
so they make a nice change of pace for me to do a science fiction book cover or something. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's I imagine, with science fiction, but also, with fantasy, you can really just, explore whatever you want. You can add in little
Well,
different creatures and, make the sky orange or whatever you want,
after spending all day doing, say, a scientific accurate picture of Saturn seen from Titan, doing a dragon, it's kind of a nice relaxing thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And one of the questions, before I forget, let me ask this one, because what I was wondering, where the name Black Cat Studios came from. Because somehow the logo reminded me of, a poster, the Moulin Rouge. No, not the Moulin Rouge. There was a different cabaret in Paris, that, I don't know, something about it just reminded me of it. But like, where
Well,
did that name come
well,
from?
my brother designed the logo.
Okay.
He's a commercial artist as well, and we both loved Art Deco, so that's why it looks the way it does.
Okay.
But my wife and I have always had a black cat, and Black Cat Studios was named after the very first black cat we ever had together, and so that's now it's sort of symbolizes the current black cat.
The current version of the Black Cat.
Exactly. So we've always had a black cat,
That's
and so
awesome.
the studio's named after that.
Okay. All right. It's a fun
Now you
studio
know.
name. Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out the
There's a real
connection
cat
between.
behind that.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out the connection between space art and Black Cats.
There's none.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. And so what's next for you? What are you working on these days? What are you looking forward to?
Well, at the moment, I'm going downstairs and finish another painting I started for myself. I'm doing a book cover for a science fiction author friend of mine, which I just sent off yesterday and waiting to hear back. And hopefully, I'll be starting a new book for the same publisher, and which will take a few months to do. And it would be about the solar system beyond Pluto,
Ooh,
between
like
here and Alpha
a
Centauri, the Kuiper Belt and the Oort clouds and comets and Planet X, and all these strange things, the heliosphere and the heliopause and all the strange things that go on past on beyond Pluto.
mm, interesting. And it would be the same sort of young adult centered.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Oh, cool. And so, and when you're doing those books, roughly how many illustrations are usually in a single book?
Hmm. Good question. Kind of depends on the book a little bit, but I may be wrong. I have to go back and look. Maybe 15 or 20, something like
Okay.
that. Maybe more.
Yeah.
I
I
never
mean,
even thought about counting them.
well, I mean, you just said it'll take you a couple months to do it. And I was just like, gosh, that's
Yeah, it
that's
does.
that's a quick turnaround for 15 to 20 illustrations.
Well, remember what Chesley Bonestell said.
Yeah.
So
Once you do the research, then it's just,
yeah, and a lot of the research is already done. So
yeah, that's great. And so your website, I think, is, I think we've already put the link into the chat, but one of the mods will do it again, no doubt. And do you have any other place where people can follow your work if they're interested to see what you
Actually,
do?
I have an online portfolio. Um,
Okay.
uh, I'll type it to you,
Okay.
and you can pass it along. I hope that's right. We'll see.
I'm sure that if it's not, somebody will find it, no doubt.
Yeah, but there's a link. There's a link to that portfolio on my main website
Okay.
where it says portfolio,
All right.
and it has pretty much every space picture I've ever done in my entire life.
Wow.
Even stuff going back to when I was just practicing when I was, got out of college.
Awesome. Good. So definitely you guys should go and check that out. Somebody was saying in the chat that they love the golden age of sci-fi look of your art.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that because I love the golden age of sci-fi.
Is that the inspiration
Well,
of
that's what I
your
grew up in,
okay.
so I can't help it.
Right. It's just that, yeah.
Ray Bradbury and Arthur C. Clarke and Robert Heinlein and all those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Listen, I don't see any other questions coming up in the chat, so I think we'll wrap it up for today. But this has just been a pleasure. Did I miss anything that you want to add before we sign off?
No, you did very well. I've
Great.
been, I've enjoyed my chat with you very much.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. So for you guys to know, tomorrow is May the 4th. It is a holiday around here at CosmoQuest, so we will not be streaming. We'll be back on Wednesday with Rocket Roundup, and there have been so many rocket launches that we might even have to do a double header. So we'll see how that goes. And otherwise, I will be back next Monday at the Steam Cafe. And thank you to Ron for being here. Thanks to you guys
Yeah.
for being in the chat. Thank you to Dr. Pamela for doing the production. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.